people who couldn't join can watch later. But okay, it worked, so we should be on. Yay. So thank you all for joining us. I'm Amber. I'm founder and creator of Novel Nightmares. Matt, my fearless co-leader for this read along, is on too. And we're excited to have Jonathan Janz with us too to talk about Children of the Dark.
Hello. So excited to be here.
I feel like we've been talking about this for so long, and like I'm so excited that it's finally here. But I'm not gonna lie, I've been kind of nervous about it all day. I think because I've been like waiting for the lead up to it.
Well, I am pretty difficult to talk to, so I don't blame you at all.
Yeah, you're very intimidating.
I am very,
You're
very
my
much.
blue sky comedian, always with the funny stuff.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't remember anything funny ever.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
Oh, all right, I'll take it though. Thank you.
We're just gonna add that to your
There are a
bio.
couple laughs.
All right. Nice, nice. Very
Um,
nice.
so to get started, could you maybe walk us through the inspiration of Children of the Dark and where the story came from?
Yeah, so I grew up, some of this might have been in one of my bios at some point. So if any of this sounds familiar, just pretend like it's not so I feel better about myself. But I grew up in this house, tiny town named Delphi, Indiana, and there was a forest, a big, deep, dark forest behind me. And then we're on the edge of town, so really nobody around. And then a huge graveyard next. So essentially, Children of the Dark takes place in my childhood home. And in fact, almost everything about it is true to actual Delphi. And the thing about Delphi, I don't want to, I mean, obviously this isn't going to be the main focus. Like it's become kind of world wide, like known for a really horrible murder case. Um, and that this double murder occurred like a year after Children of the Dark came out. And so like anyway, yeah, but that's if the name Delphi rings a bell, that's probably why, because it's been like on every crime podcast everywhere and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, so the Little League Park is as it is in the book, just down the hill from my house, like through the woods, everything. Yeah, and what's weird is like I love the book now. I love both the books now. I'm really proud of them. But when I wrote that first one, I I felt this way about other books too, but I felt like it was going to end my career because it was so like different than the other things that I'd written. I hadn't written a coming of age story yet, and the voice was so different than all my other books. The narrator was so different than all my other books. A couple of you recently read The Dismembered, which is like a totally different kind of book with a totally different kind of voice and narrator. So this was like a I mean, I think they're all unique, I hope, but I for whatever reason, I just felt like this book I was fond of it, but I was afraid readers would not be. So there you go. That didn't really answer your question at all, but I gave some ancillary information. Like I went off on some tangents related to the book. So there you go.
No, it definitely did. I mean, I think it answered it. I don't know about these Delphi murders, so I mean, this is new. I'm not a true crime person, so I haven't heard this, but
Yeah.
the timing is kind of a coincidence that this would happen right after the book come out.
It is a coincidence. And just to, I guess like I said, I don't want to obviously, and I say I don't talk about this. This is like the second time I've ever talked about it with anybody. And the reason why is because I never want people to think I'm drawing attention to the book because of the case or whatever. Obviously, the two are completely separate. But yeah, it was. And the crazy part is Kylie Ann, there's well, I guess I could just gave away a spoiler, but there's a character who gets abducted at one point, and the Delphi case that again just happened like a year later was a two young women about the same age. Something horrible happened to these two girls, and it's just so terrible. Anyway, that case just concluded. Like the national news descended on Delphi. It's a town of like 2,500. Like it's a tiny little town. And so like CNN, NBC, everybody was there just about 3 weeks ago at the conclusion. It's taken that long for the wheels of justice to turn and for somebody to be convicted of that crime. But anyway, yeah, it's just wild. It's wild.
Matt, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about the B movie feel of the books.
Yeah, definitely the vibe I got while I was reading it was like those really fun like direct to VHS like horror monster movies. But also like you brought up like the coincidence of the crime in the forward you brought up the coincidence of Stranger Things coming out
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
right
yeah,
around the same time as this book.
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about like what that was like?
That was so wild. Like you alluded to the forward there, and Stranger Things came out 3 months after Children of the Dark. And it's like one of those things I want to make sure I am very like I want to because so often you hear authors they'll be accusatory, right? They'll be like, "Oh, I wrote something like that back in 2011 and clearly my idea was stolen." This wasn't a case of anybody taking anybody's idea. What I think it's a great case of is contemporaries, me and the Duffer Brothers, like how I look, I feel like I didn't mean to name drop, but it just felt like I kind of tried to. Like, oh yeah, the Duffer Brothers, and I've got them on speed dial. But anyway, I feel like the Duffer Brothers and I consume so much of the same media, right? They're clearly Stephen King fanatics. They're clearly Aliens, like the movie Aliens fanatics. They clearly love Spielberg, like all the stuff. Like, and I've heard them interviewed before. So it's just so interesting that even though Stranger Things and Children of the Dark are different, there are a lot of like the energy you're talking about, like the vibe, it's so I feel like it's so similar. And I say that again, just in a total coincidence way, but I like it. I think it's neat because I think what it shows, if anything, is how wonderfully made all those stories were. Like Stephen King's books and things like E.T. and Stand by Me and Aliens. It's just like those stories are so timeless and wonderful that I feel like it's fun for me because I love Stranger Things. I just love watching it and seeing the same influences I have, seeing them kind of like, come out, be expressed in a different way. But there are a lot of these moments that I'm sure you all recognize if you've seen Stranger Things. There's a great scene where Steve and Dustin are just walking down the tracks, and I think they're dropping pieces of meat to lure. It's in season 2. They're luring this demi dog or whatever, I think. And it's just like, they're Stand By Me, right? And in Children of the Dark, the two really the characters, it's basically the four boys from Stand By Me without Vern, or Vern is absorbed into Barley. But like the Corey Feldman character and Vern are a lot like the Barley character in Children of the Dark. Chris Chambers and Chris Watkins, that's very intentional from Stand By Me and Stephen King's The Body. And then Gordy LaChance, the actor who played him, is Will Wheaton, and that's why I named my character Will Burgess partially, for the Will Wheaton, because that movie just imprinted itself on me, and that novella by Stephen King just imprinted itself on me. But again, I just feel like Stranger Things and Children of the Dark really. I feel like if you'd like one, you'd like the other, and if you hate one, you'd probably hate the other, just because they both have they're their own things, but they both have the same kind of energy, and I think both wear their influences on their sleeves a little bit, unabashedly, unapologetically. Yeah, because I'm proud to have been influenced by amazing stories. So
Did you have any specific monsters or monster movies in mind when you were coming up with the the children in this book?
yeah, it's been interesting. So I wrote a book called Savage Species back in 2014, and that was when the children first appeared. And then there's another creature in Savage Species that appears in the sequel to Children of the Dark, the Night Flyers. That's what the subtitle is, the Night Flyers. And I've thought a lot about that. I love my monsters, whether it's a werewolf or a vampire. I love them vicious. I don't want them to be tortured. I don't want them to be haunted. I don't want them to be terribly romantic. I just want them to just crave blood and carnage. I mean, I know that's simplistic, and I'm not saying that you can't have, because I do have conflicted villains sometimes, but there's something about the children that's just so amorally cruel and monstrous, and I like that. I like that I don't try to like give them all this backstory and make us feel it's a little bit like the xenomorphs in Alien, right? We're not like or in Aliens. I mean, yes, they have their own drive. The children have their own drive, so they don't think they're evil. But it's not like we get this sad backstory about some xenomorph, something happening to him in third grade in Aliens, right? They're just cruel and vicious, and they use humans for whatever they want. So I think when I think about the influences for the children, going back before that, I think of maybe, I think of Aliens. I think of, weirdly, like physically, I think of Gollum. Like I just feel like, because Gollum, when he's at his most vicious in the Lord of the Rings books and movies, if you stretched him out to 9 or 10 or 11 feet and gave him superhuman strength, that's I think what the children would kind of look like, those glowing green eyes. And I think that like Gollum, even in his hobbit-like stature, is scary when he gets cooking, when he gets evil. So I think when I watched Lord of the Rings, part of what I loved about that was I loved how scary Gollum could be sometimes. Even there's a moment in the third movie, Return of the King, where he's deceiving Frodo, and Frodo's starting to believe what he's saying and disbelieves Sam. And then Gollum says something to Frodo. Frodo takes it at face value, walks away, and Gollum turns around and grins at Sam. And it's the most diabolical, horrific grin. And I kind of imagine that, I think, subconsciously when I was creating the children. So yeah, I think that weirdly enough, I think they're inspired a little bit by that.
Do you have any
Sorry,
other questions, Amber,
sorry about
before we
long-winded
go?
answers. Yeah.
No, oh my gosh, we love
Oh,
these
that's
answers.
great.
They're the best. Also you mentioned spoiler. I mean, I think Matt and I's kind of understanding with each other and probably everyone here was that everyone's finished the book, so we're
Yeah.
totally fine with spoilers, just
Awesome.
FYI.
Cool.
I do want to kind of talk before we maybe get into details and more questions about the plot and like the characters about the re-release from Cemetery Dance of Children of the Dark, because when I started reading horror, I think Children of the Dark had been out of print, and it was kind of like this really hard to get book that everyone loved, but we couldn't get our hands on. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious about the process of bringing it back into print, and not only bringing it back into print, but also putting out the sequel too.
Yeah, so it's also there's a lot like that's baked in. I'll try to like stick to the main part of that question because there's so much to do with my career that kind of like has influenced that and like some decisions I've made, which I think are good decisions, but painful decisions. But like just to stick to, I guess, the substance of the question, at least at first, that was published. So my first like 9 books came out with one publisher between 2012 and 2015. That publisher went under. And then I had all these books orphaned. So there's this weird kind of in between time between 2015 and 2018 when I started to have some of my backlist come out through Tree, where I was kind of homeless and floating, and all my books were out of print. And that's where Children of the Dark came in. Children of the Dark was kind of the bridge, and it came out in 2016 through this tiny little press in Texas called Sinister Grin. And they put out that book, they put out Exorcist Falls, and then they went under. And I feel like as I talk about this, I feel like I'm kind of like casting myself as like this kiss of death, right? Like all these publishers I work with just go under. But anyway, they went under, and so Show in the Dark and Exorcist Falls were also orphaned. So they got orphaned about the time that the other books came back into print with Flame Tree, and then they stayed out of print for a while. And essentially, what I wanted to do with Children of the Dark, like I just loved it so much. And I'd already written this, I wrote the sequel probably around 2020 or 2021. I just wanted to have some say about how that was going to re-enter the world because I didn't just want to essentially, and this is where this gets into my career a little bit. Like Joe Lansdale, we might get to this in a little while. Joe R. Lansdale gave me some really important career advice that affected this. And essentially, with Children of the Dark, I felt like I wanted it to come back out, but I really wanted to have a version of the same cover because I loved Matthew Rivera's cover, this Australian cover artist who's just a genius. He did The Dismembered, which I think is just a work of art, that cover. And then I wanted him to do the sequel, Children of the Dark 2. And I wanted the two to look kind of similar, and I kind of had an idea, and it like he has the kind of sensibility that I just wanted him to do it. And how many publishers are really going to let you go to them and say, hey, I want this and I want this and I want them to be released close together. And I want, and so, usually the author doesn't, unless he's, somebody just gigantic. And even so, like not even like really successful authors get to do that very often. Like we're not in a position often to make demands. There are places where we can dig in and like stick to our guns a little bit, but as far as dictating everything, that's kind of a rarity in this field. So, I knew at the time, I think it was Kevin Lucia was the editor at the time. I knew Kevin, and I knew Richard Chismar a little bit, just through the Dismembered, and I just felt like they would be cool about it. They would understand like what I wanted to do. They would try to get the releases close together because I didn't want to wait 2 years between releases. Because people had been waiting long enough for because they were waiting for Children of the Dark 2. I think I started to talk about that book, that sequel back in like 2017 or 2018. I hadn't even written it yet, but people were already aware of it. So children, Cemetery Dance, they were cool about how I wanted them to come out. They were also super cool. They agreed with me about Matthew Revere's cover. Of course, Dismembered had come out through them, and they really respected him. I'm sure they respected him just aside from all that, because he's just a genius. But I think they understood where I was coming from and why I wanted him so. Because I feel like the cover is just the book. Like it's one of those it's just they're inextricable. They're just so much part. It's like the Stranger Things font is like I think it's like Christine in one of the Stephen King 80s novels, and like that font is that show. And it's that opening credit sequence is that show. And I felt the same way about the cover and even the font for the text. I'm like, damn, he really nailed it. He really got that so right. That retro feeling. Because I think Matt, you might have mentioned earlier the retro feeling. Like, here's one of the things, and it sounds immodest, but I love the books. And I feel like one thing I love about them is that they're kind of timeless. Like there are a couple small references to modernity, but they could easily take place in the 80s. They could easily take place 10 years from now. They could easily take place in 1968. And I like that. Like I like the fact that they're not really going to be dated. So anyway, that's probably more than you asked for, but that was where Cemetery Dance came in. And they're really good publishers. So I guess I should say that too. It wasn't just about my control. Like they did a great job with the Dismembered. I really like them. They've got good distribution. And so that was another thing. I just thought they'd do a really good job with it. So there we go.
No, I love the cover too. I mean, I think it's such a strong cover, and it's something that I also just associate naturally with the book. And I appreciate too the cover art being inside for the breaks for the parts and the introductions to the different parts.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
was when you were writing Children of the Dark, did you always know that it was going to be broken into parts? And if so, like what goes into making that decision?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that the one let me see here. I have the original. This is the original version right here. And the only difference really in the cover art is the title's a little bit higher. But he moved it down so he could so it would look more like the Night Flyers, because that title had to accommodate the subtitle, and also the way that he explained it to me, and I know nothing about art. But as I'm looking here, like the original chapters didn't have the art in them, and I think you said the new one does, which
Yeah.
really I think a really cool addition. Like I really love that. Um, and like I always tell my students that the book is the boss, right? Yeah, see, that's so freaking cool. Like that is awesome. That's just so cool. I love that. And so like the book is the boss, and every book needs different things. And that's from a macro level, micro level. And I feel like this, like in some of my books, I love to have like chapter titles. I think it's fun. It doesn't fit for every book. Like some books just don't need that. They just need like, a numbered chapter or whatever. And again, I feel like King is my main influence, and he does the same thing. Like sometimes he goes with chapter titles, sometimes he doesn't. And I like that. And I think that one of the other things, not to make this a King love fest, but I turn everything into a King love fest. That's why he never writes the same book twice. Like he does, he's always true to the book, and every book is different. Even books that have some similarities still can be very much separated into different things. And some of them take place in the same universes, but they're still like their own beasts. They're living, breathing like they have their own character, they have their own DNA, their own like marrow, and I love that about him so much. And Mallerman and I talk about that too. It's like, you know, he's the guy, like he's the ultimate example of just following the story and staying true to the story. Like so many writers are formulaic. So many writers like, and I get it. I get wanting to make money. I get like, oh, this did well, so I better do it again or something like it again. He's the opposite of that. Like he'll write something completely. Who would have thought he'd write freaking fairy tale, right? Like he'll just write anything he wants. And the thing is though, when you write like that, your heart is in it. Your heart is in it and your soul is in it. And there's a beating heart on the page. And that's why in every one of King's books, I feel that heart. I feel that truth in what he writes. But getting back to your thing, Amber, I feel like the chapter titles, because it's not a YA book, but it is the two books, the Children of the Dark books, are the only two books in my school library where I teach, because it's a 7 through 12. And I think that there are some books maybe that I've written that could be in a 9 through 12, but to be in a 7 through 12. And again, I'm like the opposite of a book banner or censor or whatever. You know, I just don't want to get the librarian in trouble because she's cool. So I don't want to, don't want people calling her and all that crap. But like these books, even though there's adult content in there for sure. There are 10 or 11 F-bombs in there in the first book. So it's not a YA book, even though YA can have the F word. I don't consider it YA, but it does have, I think it could appeal to that age group too. And I feel like that's something that feels a little bit like connected to that age group. Again, I'm not saying that there is no age limit on chapter titles, but it just feels like it maybe, I don't know, in a way it like ties into all different age groups that way. The chapter titles and what they did with the art within the book, I feel like that makes it maybe a little more appeal. None of those none of those were calculated decisions, by the way. Like I'm the least calculating writer ever, by the way. Like so that's probably to my detriment. I never think of the market. I never think of, oh, this will make it sell better and this, I can get better market penetration here. I should probably think that way because I know it's a business. I'm not like a flake, but to me it's just magic and I just want to always stay in that magical place, which sometimes means I'm a bad businessman. Yeah. Anyway.
I don't think that's true. I've heard that that same sentiment even from someone like Josh who, I think it's important to you as writers to stay in that magical place and I think it comes through in the books, but I also think that that's what lends itself to the versatility of your writing too, for you to be able to write something like The Dismembered to Children of the Dark, which is definitely a coming of age story. Was it difficult to write teenagers?
It really wasn't. It was very natural. In fact, yeah, that's it. Like I don't feel like anything I've written has been difficult as far as capturing the voice because I I think there are two, this is just going to sound so arrogant, but there are two aspects of me that I just think are objectively true. One is that I read very widely. I mean, that's not like a brag, it's just true. I like read I read a book called Jamaica by Jamaica Kincaid called Annie John. It's a book of short stories about a young woman growing up, and her experiences, how she grows apart from her mom. I read that the other day. And I'm reading a Joe Hill book today, and it's freaking sublime. I haven't read Joe Hill yet. I'm such an idiot, and he's so good. I'd heard for years how good he was, and he's better than I ever thought he would be. Like I'm only 20 pages into Heart-Shaped Box and I'm already like lamenting the time I've lost that I could have been reading his books because he's so freaking amazing. Anyway, so I'm widely read and I think that allows me to write in a lot of different voices but still stay true to myself because it's all natural. And I think the other thing, this I guess is less objective, but this is I think I hope it's true. Like if you're a I mean, I think we should all be empathetic. I think we should all care about other people. But if you don't have empathy and if you don't have a heart for kids and you're a teacher, you need to get the hell out of the profession because they need that. They need love. They need like care. They need people who are sensitive to them, who try to understand them. And so, like for me, like just for example, if any of my own children start to say something negative about a kid at school, like I'll always listen to my own kids and love them and nurture them, but I try to get them to not like, unless it's necessary for me to hear, I try not to hear it because I'm going to have those kids in class someday. So I don't want to hear about their worst moments. I want to be able to have them walk into my doors and for me to see the best parts of them and then to water those seeds and help them, grow. So like people can say whatever they want. Like, I'm a great writer, I'm a terrible writer, whatever. It's fine. I can get 1-star reviews, 5-star reviews. It's cool. Like whatever readers feel is what they feel. But I don't think any reader can accuse me of not like caring about my characters because I really do. And then I care about my characters because I care about people. And I think that that is reflected, specifically here with Children of the Dark. Like these are the age groups I work with every day, eighth grade through seniors, right? And so I hear them talk every day. I hear them interact. I interact with them every day from 7:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. So, I think being around that every day makes it feel very natural to, I guess, tap into that and to not try to force anything. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so, I love what you said too about like letting them just like show themselves to you and like you watering them. Like that's so nice to hear. And I mean, I'm sure it's great for them too. I
I
do
hope
want
so.
to, I don't have any other questions for myself right now, but I do want to give everyone else a chance to ask their questions if they want. So feel free to take yourselves on mute.
Hi, Jonathan. So I have a
Hello.
question. How's it going? Thanks for
All
being
right. How
here.
are you?
I'm good. So I've just read the first one. I haven't read the second one yet, but that's coming soon. I loved it. Thought it was
Thank you.
great. So I want to ask you like a geeky writer question, just about the process of coming up with the story.
Awesome.
One, did you always know that Carl Paget was going to be Will's dad? And two, with the character death, did you kind of know the character deaths, or did they sort of take you by surprise, or you sort of realized, oh, maybe I need to kill this character and save that one, and vice versa? Like, did that change through the writing of the book, basically?
Yeah, so for the Carl Paget thing, I figured that out relatively early.
Mm.
Um, I didn't know when I started write the book. I know very little about where I'm going when I write, so I'm definitely, what's the cheesy phrase, pantser,
Mhm.
right? You fly by the seat of your pants. That's definitely, how I write. Although there have been a couple books that I've planned out in more detail, but in almost all my books, I just completely fly blind. So when I first started to put fingers to keyboard, I didn't know that, but I did figure it out probably just, a few chapters in. And I do feel like as far as twists go, I don't think that's the kind of twist that's like a Kaiser Soze twist where people are like,
Right.
no way! Like I don't feel like that's the kind of twist, and I don't try to like put it like that. I think it's more of a twist for Will. I don't think the audience is as surprised, and that's cool. Like you can't disguise every twist, right? You can't because you can go the other way, right? You can try to conceal it so much that you end up not making it logical or fit. So I think the audience figures out who that is a lot earlier than Will does, but it's still a surprise to Will, which is what really matters, right? Because it's through his lens that we see the whole story. And then the character deaths, man, I had no idea. I had no idea. And I'm telling you, like there's certain deaths you write and it's like, oh, that's sad. Other deaths you write and you're like, hell yeah, that person really deserved it. I enjoyed doing that. There was and you probably already know. So since we've all read the book, if you haven't read the book and you're listening to this on video, just plug your ears right now because major spoiler coming. And I do think this was a surprise probably to most readers because it was a surprise to me, and that's Will's best friend, Chris.
Mm.
When he dies, that I hated it. I hated it, and I felt like because I started to feel it's a weird feeling like when a character that I love is gonna die, I start to feel like I'm like sliding down this hill. Like the rocks are falling and like everything is coming loose and it's becoming almost like gravel and I'm trying to claw my way so I don't fall over the cliff, but it's just coming and I can't stop that momentum. That's how I felt because I started to because the choreography of the scene it's like there's a big attack, right? And I think for a lot of that scene, Paget's still alive. And so like they're not going to get out unscathed. It's not going to be Chris, Rebecca, Mia, Will, Peach. They're not all going to come home holding hands, frolicking through the streets of Shadeland, right? There's going to be some death there. And when I started to see where that was going, I knew that Will would choose his sister ahead of his best friend, as awful as that was and as painful as that was. But again, the phrase that I've heard about that scene on from people is a Sophie's choice moment. And I think because I've heard it since a lot. I guess it's probably a pretty common like phrase, but the first time I ever heard it was in a Children of the Dark review. I was like, oh yeah, that was a Sophie's choice moment because like neither one was they were both horrible, horrible outcomes. And that really surprised me. But I also feel like, and it's the same way with King, he always like there's an example of it in Duma Key where you see a death coming and you can't stomach it. You don't want it to happen, but you know it's going to. And it does, and it hits you harder than you thought it would. And so I just, King always follows the story and does what the story requires. And I try to do the same thing. So I was super surprised and still makes me so sad.
Same. Like that. I mean, that whole sequence is like really affecting. And then, the whole thing is about him trying to save Peach. And then you create that, well, who is he going to save? Which is like I didn't even think that was going to be a choice. So that was like a really clever way for the scene to go. It's like, okay, now Peach's survival kind of depends on Chris dying. You're like, no, he can't do I no, neither of those things. No, stop. And then he saves Peach and Chris goes. And yeah, it is kind of like if they killed uh River Phoenix during the main story of Stand By Me. I know they fade him out at the end, but like it was like that level of no, he's not going to do that.
You know what? You
Yeah.
know what? Okay, so you just articulated like my thoughts, I think, as I was writing that. But then also, I didn't realize till now. I forgot. You're right. Like and you talk about the gut punch of all gut punches when we find out at the end how he died,
Yeah.
Stand By Me. I wonder. I just wonder if subconsciously if that was part of that. Because he again, Chris Watkins is Chris Chambers. Like, obviously their familial situations are different and all that stuff. And Chris is an only child and Chris Chambers is not. But like I feel like they're both really good friends. I mean, they're like damn near Samwise Gamgee level friends, like they are just the kind that we all should have, that we all really crave. Just somebody who's never going to sell us out, somebody who's always going to stick by our sides. And I feel like both of those characters are like that, which is probably why it's painful. Yeah.
Yeah. But thanks for killing Kurt. That was really good. On the flip side, I'm glad that one.
That's the other kind of death, right? That's the kind that didn't feel so bad.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So I'm off camera. Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, Chris's death was definitely sad. I feel like because you warned us so many times, you warned us in the beginning, so many people were going to die.
Yeah.
And then you warned us Becca was going to die in 20 minutes. So then I was like, well, maybe Chris won't die because Becca's
Right.
going to die. But
Right.
did you know when you were writing this that you were going to write a second one? Because, God, what's his name? Baylor or
Oh, Barley?
Barley, he's like gone for so much of it. Like I was like, did you do that so not everybody died? Like, so he had a friend left, he just comes in at the end.
So to take him off the chessboard a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, because so many people, like they all basically died, except for
Yeah.
or even the mom, like you killed her off screen. So I was
Right.
like,
Damn.
could she come back? Like maybe she's not really dead, But I haven't read
Yeah.
the second one.
That book, I mean, the book again, I'm not saying it's good or bad or whatever. People can have whatever reactions to what they want, but it goes pretty hard, doesn't it? I mean, for a book with young adult characters and all that stuff, it reminds me a little bit of a movie I saw much later called Summer of '84. And
Oh yeah.
there's a death near the end of that's so freaking gut-wrenching. And I feel like again, Shown in the Dark, there are moments like that in Shown in the Dark, and the mom's death, dang, I'd forgotten about that. That was horrible, right? Because you think that they're finally gonna, because the mom's trying to, she's not, I feel bad for her. Like again, she's not a good mom. Obviously, she would fail like a mom test. You know, she'd flunk out of Mom 101. But I don't think she's a horrible person at heart. I mean, like there's some, because that's it. People, it's not binary. People aren't like good or bad, right? And I think there's definitely some good in her, and she's trying to do better. Like being addicted to prescription drugs, that's a really difficult thing, I imagine, right? That's a real thing that people go through, and she had a car accident, and that wasn't her fault, and so she got addicted to these things. And my wife, for example, deals with horrible back pain, so I don't deal with that, but I know from just her experience how horrible it sounds, and so that's what Will's mom goes through. And so I feel like she didn't deserve to die. Like, you know, she maybe deserved to go to some parenting classes, but she didn't deserve to die. So like that, yeah, I didn't ever plan to like have anything else happen with her. I didn't know she would die until in the scene where it happens. Because like as they're coming back out of the woods to Will's house, that's when I realized that she was dead. I didn't realize that she was dead until Will finds out, and then it just kind of like flowed onto the page. But as far as Barley, that wasn't calculated. Really, there's nothing calculated for the sequel because and I don't think I even thought of a sequel at first, at least not until I did the resolutions in the denouement. I think in the back of my mind, as I wrote that denouement with Will in the mental, or the, sorry, the hospital, I think there I was thinking, okay, maybe I could continue it, because, you know, that's a pretty painful way to end with your main character hospitalized, you know, institutionalized, or whatever verb you want to use or adjective you want to use. But as far as like preserving life for the sequel, I wasn't thinking that, because again, I didn't think anybody liked the book. So I wasn't really thinking that far ahead. I was just like writing the book and going with it. I will say that Barley, the reason why he was taken off the chessboard was because his parents are, and you know this from reading it. Was it Desi? Was that your? It's an awesome name, by the
Yeah.
way. That you know, his parents are like foils to some of the other parents in the story. Like it's the stereotype that all parents are horrible in stories. They're either dead at the beginning, or, you know, to give the, you know, to give the young the young protagonist somewhere to go and to find other figures, or they're horrible. And I like that Barley's parents are really good parents. They're just a really good mom and dad. And I love that they're like very ordinary. And I love that they, you know, he owns this general store that doesn't make much money. And I love that she's a secretary at a school. And I just, because, you know, these are the people, and I'm not saying that like that, I'm not at all like, that's not said critically. I just mean that they're people that we all know. They're people that we've all interacted with. And you know, we've all had those people who care, who don't have to care, but they care. And that's Barley's parents. And they just, I just never, I felt like there's no way they would have let their son go, you know? Like in a movie, maybe like the son would like, no, damn it, these are my friends. I'm gonna go off with them and we're gonna fight the monsters together. But I felt like that just wouldn't ring true. I felt like he was not the kind of kid that would ever talk back to his mom and dad, at least not then. Um, and I felt like they were the parents who, like, his mom, she's kind of even though she seems very, I think of Edie McClurg from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the secretary in that movie. I think of her when I think of Barley's mom. Like she would like grab him and hold on to him, like hold on to his legs and not let him leave. Like she just would not have let him go because she's so protective of her little boy. So yeah, so I feel like in that case, even though it worked out really well that Barley survived, because he's a character in part two, as you know, and he's going to be a major character in shoot. Oh no, man! I just kind of gave away a spoiler. Some of you have already
Spoilers.
too. All right, well, maybe he's a major character in flashbacks in part three. Anyway, yeah, so I already answered the question. Sorry, that was very clumsy of me. But yeah, anyway, Barley, I felt like he's naturally taken off the table. And I wasn't thinking of that. But if I had been thinking strategically, I probably would have left a couple more characters alive because dang, the body count is high in that book, as you noticed. Yeah.
So we're getting a part 3, is what I'm hearing.
My plan, my thing here. So yeah, there's a lot going on like behind the scenes. I can say that when is this airing live right now? Are people watching this now?
I mean, just the people on. So no, just the people you see.
And when's it going to like drop? Like when's the video going to drop? Like right after we get done?
It can drop whenever you tell me you want it to drop.
I'm not going to tell you anything because you're all freaking so
Or
awesome. And
you can pause recording for a moment.
Yeah, I can pause
Yeah,
recording,
yeah.
or I can cut it. I have to edit stuff out all the time. So it's your
well,
choice.
like so okay, so I'll just say I'll share whatever after we get done recording. I'll tell you something.
Okay.
But basically it's like career wise. Okay, so what happens with Children of the Dark is partially going to happen like whatever happens with my career, and I plan on writing a third and a fourth book. I want it to be a quadrilogy. That's how I kind of see it playing out. And the third book I have a lot of it like in my head already, like the characters I have, and I have a lot of the situations already figured out, which is not like the first two books. It's just kind of like already written itself up here. Parts of it have written themselves. But the way it ends, anyway, I just think that there's going to be a fourth book, and that's my plan right now is to have four books total. Yeah, so and there's even something to do with that involves publishers that I can't say, but I'll tell you that later too. Yeah.
Deal. We'll take it.
Yeah. I didn't mean to ask that question to get you in trouble. I'm just
Oh, it's a
nosy.
great question. I love the question. It's an exciting question and it's a great question. I just don't want to like because I get so excited too. I just don't want to like mess up in some way and make my agent mad at me or something, you know?
Get it?
So
Yeah.
I did that by the way, like a month ago. I like said something. Yeah, I'm not online or anything, but I said something to somebody we were talks with, and he's like, "Well, let's let's like scale that back a little bit, Jonathan. Let's relax a little bit. Let me handle that. Let's do the talking because I just get so excited." So yeah.
Until you make a Tom Holland level mistake, I think you're okay.
Oh my gosh, what was it with Infinity War or something? Like I know he like
Yeah.
didn't he spoil.
Yeah.
He
He's
talked
like,
about what
"Nice."
happened.
Yeah. He spoiled like a major plot point and was like, oh wait.
And then he tried to walk it back at everyone around him. Was like, no, no, no,
No,
no, no,
this
no.
you're making it worse, you're making it worse. Yeah. So it could be like a Marvel contract mistake. So
There we go. It could be. And you know what I think though about Tom Holland too? I just showed part of Spider-Man Homecoming in my in one of my classes on Friday. We studied the dialogue. I just feel like that guy, I feel like I'd get along with him because I just feel like his energy, I just feel like he's really excited
He's
about
a
things.
puppy dog.
And I love that though. I love that he's so thrilled. I just love that he's not jaded, or at least he doesn't seem to be jaded. Maybe he will be 10 years from now, but he just seems so just thrilled about everything. And I love that. I love that about him.
He gets to be Spider-Man. What's not to be thrilled about?
Right? And he's great. I love all three Spider-Men. But yeah, I love him too. Yeah, I think he's awesome. Yeah.
I have a question for you. And it's something that came up a little bit in the Dismembered too that I just read. Whenever you write your action scenes, how does that go? Because like I texted Amber about this, and I'm like, if I ever had to like plan out an action scene, it would be like Napoleon Dynamite in the dojo. Like it would not be all these like table flips and shit. Like, how do you plan that out? Like, does it just unfold as you write, or do you like have somewhat of a goal?
Yeah, no, here's the thing. It's like, and I know how I sound here. I'm self-aware enough to know that some could misconstrue this as my being. I know you're not going to feel this way, but I think that because you know me well enough by now, but I think some would look at me as being that stereotypical, talking about the muse and all that stuff and trying to make it sound so lofty and ethereal. And then there's also that danger of people, anytime I mention Stephen King, well, there's the eye roll of there's Jonathan talking about Stephen King again. Shut up, Jonathan. We've heard enough about how much you love him. But I'm sorry, I'll never stop talking about how much I love him, because I do. Because he's like the dad I never had. Like all those years of reading, I just like he filled this void in my life. And anyway, but the thing that King says, and that's like my whole process, like anything he would ever say, I probably took to heart too much. And I remember him saying one time a long time ago, he talked about how stories are pre-existing objects that are like hidden in the earth. And it is the writer's job, like an archaeologist, to go in and exhume that object with as much care as we can, to preserve it and to bring it out. But it's already there. It's always been there. And so the dirt, the soil is our subconscious, but these stories already exist fully formed. So all the books I'm ever going to write are already there, or at least a lot pieces of them are already there, at least, or they will be before they come out, before I go in there archaeologically and exhume them. So, getting back to your question, the action scenes, just like any other scene, just like a dialogue scene or a sex scene or whatever scene it is already there, and it's like I'm just following it. I'm just following it where it goes. You mentioned the Dismember. There's a scene in the Dismember that I'm really proud of, and I think it turned out really well. But it turned out well only because I just sat there. Because if I get in the way, Jack Ketchum used to say this, Dallas Mayer, he always talked about staying out of his character's way. And that goes right in line with Stephen King's thing. So basically, every advice that Dallas Mayer, Jack Ketchum ever gave me is like he and King were friends, and like I think they had very similar mindsets and beliefs about story. But like I stay out of the way. If I start to get in the way, that's when things start to be bad. That's so I'll write every day. I write between 3,000 to 3,500 words. There are days that when I go back to cut, I'll have to cut like 1,500 of them. Those were the days that maybe I got in my character's way a little bit. Those are the days that I tried to like, oh, this might be good. Let's, whatever. The days where, and I always edit my stuff, but the days where I end up keeping like 28, 2,900, those are the days that I stay the hell out of the way and I just let them go. I just let them have total control and autonomy. So there's a scene in The Dismembered that is it's so elaborate, but it is a dinner scene where a ton of characters. I don't know how many speaking parts are in that scene. There may be a dozen speaking parts, and there are like that many plots and subplots, and they all. You know what it reminds me of? Here's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of the Council of Elrond in the Fellowship of the Ring, where Elrond is, because you have about that many speaking parts. You have about a dozen speaking parts in that scene. And all these characters are arguing in this crossfire, and then the blocking keeps changing because Boromir is making speeches and Gandalf is shouting him down and Frodo is coming forth. There's a scene that, if anything, is probably more elaborate than that in The Dismembered. And had I tried to like orchestrate that, it would have been the biggest disaster ever. I probably would have ended up keeping about 10 of the 3,000 words that day. But because I stayed out of the way and let all of it just unfold, because the camera's over here on these two characters, then we cut to this reaction shot, and then we come over here to this character, and it's just all so, and I'm just really proud of it because I feel like it all works, and it's so complicated. And if I ever tried to do it like by head rather than by feel, I would have just botched it and it would have sucked. Anyway.
That makes sense. I know the scene that you're talking about, and I really like that one. I think that it's a
Crazy,
smart scene.
right?
Yeah,
Like
I
there's
like that
so
one a lot.
much
Yeah,
stuff happening
it's a
in that
smart one.
scene.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Yeah. So anyway, that's how I write my action. If it ever works, it's because I stayed out of the way. Anyway, so anytime, it's just better if I stay out of the way. When I'm successful is when my mind has as little to do with it as possible.